You married him for his money, Eleanor Whitfield declared across the Christmas dinner table, her voice cutting through conversations like a scalpel through silk. 23 relatives turned to stare as she pointed her fork at me, diamonds glittering on every finger. Diamonds her son couldn't actually afford. The question that made me bite my tongue wasn't whether to reveal the truth about my net worth, but whether exposing her son's mounting debts would destroy more than just their Christmas dinner. We all know the truth, she continued, warming to her audience. A kindergarten teacher from Nebraska doesn't just happen to meet a Whitfield at a charity gala. You targeted him. My husband James shifted beside me, his hand finding mine under the table. Should I tell her? He whispered, knowing exactly what the Forbes 30 under 30 list would reveal tomorrow morning. I shook my head, squeezing his fingers. Let her have this moment. She'd need the memory when reality crashed down. Nothing to say for yourself, Sophia? Eleanor pressed, mistaking my silence for shame. At least the other gold diggers had the grace to be beautiful. You're just practical. Mom, James warned, but his voice lacked conviction. He'd been fighting this battle for our entire 3-year marriage, and he was tired. Don't mom me, Eleanor snapped. Someone needs to protect this family's interests. Do you know she made you sign a prenup? What kind of loving wife demands a prenup? The kind who has assets to protect, James said quietly. Eleanor laughed, a sound like crystal breaking. Assets? A teaching degree and a used Honda? Please. She probably has that prenup, so she can claim alimony when she divorces you. I took a sip of wine, the cheap stuff Eleanor always served because Sophia wouldn't know good wine anyway, and considered my options. The truth would humble her, but it might also destroy the careful balance James and I had built. He knew about my money, of course. Had known since our second date when I'd accidentally used my real credit card instead of my decoy. But we'd agreed to keep it quiet from his family, to see if they could accept me for me. 3 years later, I had my answer. Speaking of gold diggers, Cousin Patricia chimed in, eager to pile on. Did you see she wore the same dress as last Christmas? James, darling, if you need help buying your wife proper clothes. I like this dress, I said mildly. It was true. The simple black sheath was comfortable and classic. The fact that it was also Armani, custom-tailored during my last trip to Milan, wasn't something Patricia's outlet mall fashion sense would recognize. Of course you do, Eleanor sighed dramatically. James, I've set up a meeting with Bradford Sinclair. His daughter Muffy just got divorced. Lovely girl from a good family. She understands our world. Our world? I couldn't help but ask. Society, dear. Real society. Not whatever Nebraska barn dance you crawled out of. The Nebraska comment always amused me. Yes, I was from Omaha. What Eleanor didn't know was that my father had founded one of the largest agricultural tech companies in the world. That the barn I grew up in was a 12,000 square foot estate. That I'd gone to Switzerland for finishing school before getting my teaching degree because I actually wanted to help children, not because I needed the job. I believe Sophia's family owns some farmland, Aunt Margaret offered with false kindness. How quaint. 17,000 acres, I confirmed, which was true. I just didn't mention the additional tech patents, the venture capital firm, or the bioengineering company that had revolutionized crop yields across the Midwest. Acres of corn, Eleanor dismissed. Hardly comparable to the Whitfield portfolio. James choked on his wine. He'd seen the real Whitfield portfolio. A house of cards built on bad investments, ego, and his mother's spending habits. The only reason they still had the family mansion was because he'd been secretly paying the mortgage from his prosecutor's salary. You're absolutely right, I agreed. The Whitfields have such a sterling reputation. Especially after that Times article about the embezzlement scandal. Eleanor's face went rigid. That was a misunderstanding. Charles was cleared of all charges. After he paid back the money, I noted innocently. How fortunate he had liquid assets. He hadn't. I'd been the one who'd quietly covered the $3 million to keep James's father out of prison. Through shell companies, of course. The family thought Charles had liquidated overseas investments. How would you know about that? Eleanor's eyes narrowed. It was in the paper, I shrugged. I can read, despite being from Nebraska. Ladies, James's father Charles interrupted from his end of the table, where he'd been silently drinking since we arrived. Perhaps we could discuss something more pleasant? I'm simply looking out for our family, Eleanor insisted. Someone has to protect James from his mistake. Mistake? James stood abruptly. Sophia is the best thing that ever happened to me. Sit down, Eleanor commanded. You're being dramatic. Just like when you insisted on becoming a prosecutor instead of joining the family firm. The family firm that had collapsed 5 years ago due to mismanagement. Another thing I'd quietly fixed, finding positions for all the displaced employees through my network. You want to know the truth about Sophia? James was really angry now. I could see it in the tension of his shoulders, the way his hands clenched. James, I said softly. Don't. No, they should know. Mom, you want to talk about gold diggers? Sophia paid off Dad's debt. She's the reason you still have this house. She's the one who... James. I stood, placing my hand on his arm. Please. It's Christmas. He looked at me, torn between loyalty and fury. They treat you like garbage. I know, I said simply. Sit. Please. He sat, but his jaw remained clenched. Eleanor laughed uncertainly. What nonsense is he spouting? As if a public school teacher could afford. My phone buzzed. A notification from my assistant. Forbes list goes live at midnight. You're number 47. Congratulations again, boss. I glanced at the clock. 11:47 p.m. Sophia probably needs to grade papers or something, Cousin Patricia giggled. Do kindergartners even have papers? They do, I said. Also, I resigned from teaching last month. Finally realized you couldn't keep up the charade? Eleanor pounced. Going to live off James openly now? Actually, I'm taking a more active role in my family's business. We're acquiring several companies, and they need oversight. Your family's farm? She said it like farm was synonymous with outhouse. Among other things. Well, I suppose someone has to milk the cows, Aunt Margaret tittered. 11:58 p.m. You know what? I pulled out my phone. Let me show you something. Sophia, James warned, recognizing my tone. No, they should see. Since I'm such a gold digger. I pulled up the Forbes website, refreshing the page. They do this list every year. 30 under 30. Young entrepreneurs, innovators, wealth creators. Is this supposed to impress us? Eleanor yawned. James could have been on that list if he'd joined the family business instead of wasting his talent on public service. Midnight. The page refreshed. Here we go, I said, scrolling. Number 50, tech entrepreneur, $45 million. Number 49, hedge fund manager, $48 million. Number 48, inherited fortune, $52 million. Why are you showing us this? Patricia demanded. Number 47, I continued, turning the phone toward them. Sophia Whitfield, agricultural technology and venture capital, net worth $387 million. Silence. Eleanor grabbed the phone, staring at the screen. My photo stared back. A professional headshot from last year's Tech Innovation Summit where I'd given the keynote. This is fake, she stammered. Read the bio, I suggested helpfully. Daughter of agritech founder Marcus Chun, Sophia built her own fortune through strategic investments and her venture firm, Prairie Innovation Capital. Her agricultural patents have revolutionized sustainable farming across the Midwest. Despite her wealth, she spent 5 years teaching kindergarten in Omaha's public schools, citing a passion for early childhood education. $387 million? Charles had sobered up remarkably quickly. Give or take. Markets fluctuate. It was $350 million when I married James, which is why I asked for the prenup. Didn't want anyone to think he married me for money. But you drive a Honda, Patricia whispered. I like Hondas. They're reliable. You shop at Target. They have great basics. You wore the same dress. As I said, I like this dress. Eleanor was still staring at the phone, her face cycling through expressions like a slot machine. You're lying. This is some elaborate prank. Mom, James said quietly. I tried to tell you. Multiple times. You just never wanted to hear it. If this is real, Charles said slowly, why didn't you say anything? Why let us? Why let Eleanor? Because I wanted to see if you could accept me for who I am, not what I have, I said simply. A kindergarten teacher who loves your son. But after 3 years of being called a gold digger, a barn dancer, and practical but not beautiful, I think I have my answer. We didn't know. Eleanor's voice had gone shrill. Would it have mattered? Would you have been kinder if you'd known? Or would you have just found different reasons to disapprove? That's not fair. Fair. I laughed. Was it fair when you tried to set James up with other women at every family event? Was it fair when you forgot to invite me to the charity gala where you introduced him to Muffy Sinclair as sadly single? Was it fair when you told everyone at the country club that I was after the family fortune? Those were misunderstandings. No, Eleanor. Those were choices. You chose to see the worst in me because I didn't fit your narrow definition of suitable. My phone rang. My assistant. Sorry to call so late, she said when I answered. But the journal wants a quote about the Forbes ranking. Also, the acquisition papers for Whitfield Industries are ready for your signature. Whitfield Industries? I kept my voice casual. That's the one in receivership? Yes. Buying the debt gives us controlling interest. Should I proceed? Eleanor had gone very pale. Whitfield Industries was the last remnant of their family empire, the one thing keeping them afloat. Hold off, I said, looking at James. He was watching me with something between pride and sadness. I'll call you back. You were going to buy our company? Charles asked quietly. I was going to save it, I corrected. Restructure the debt, implement new management, make it profitable again. Like I did with the embezzled funds, the mortgage, James's law school loans, and dozen other fires I've put out over the last 3 years. You paid my loans? James looked stunned. I thought I got that government forgiveness program. You did. The Bank of Sophia government. Very exclusive program. But why? Eleanor's voice was small now, defeated. Because I love your son. Because helping his family made him happy. Because I could. I stood, gathering my coat. But I'm done now. Done being your punching bag. Done pretending your approval matters. Sophia, wait, Charles stood too. We're sorry. We didn't know. That's the point. You didn't. No. And you didn't care to know. You saw Nebraska and teacher and middle-class parents at our wedding, and you made your judgment. Your parents seemed so normal, Patricia said weakly. They are normal. They also happen to be billionaires who taught me that money doesn't make you better than anyone else. A lesson this family clearly never learned. James stood beside me. If she goes, I go. James, no. Eleanor reached for her son. We can work this out. Sophia, please. We'll do better. Why? Because now you know I'm rich? Because now we know we were wrong, Charles said quietly. He looked older suddenly, diminished. I've spent 3 years watching my son defend you against us. Watching you quietly take our insults with grace. I should have seen what he saw. But you didn't. None of you did. So what happens now? Eleanor asked. You'll divorce him? Take your money and leave? No, I said. I love James. We'll stay married happily despite his family. But don't expect me at any more family dinners where I'm the entertainment. And the company? Charles asked carefully. Whitfield Industries? I looked at James. He nodded slightly. I'll still buy it, I decided. Save the jobs, stabilize the company. But it won't be a Whitfield company anymore. I'm thinking. Chin Industries has a nice ring to it. Eleanor made a small, pained sound. Or, I continued, you could convince me that you've actually learned something. That you can see me as more than a bank account or a gold digger. That you can treat me with basic respect. We can, Patricia said quickly. We will. Prove it, I challenged. Not with words. With actions. With time. With genuine change. How? Eleanor asked desperately. Start by apologizing to every woman you've called a gold digger. Every person you've dismissed for not being our kind. Every teacher you've looked down on. Every farmer you've mocked. I pulled on my coat. When you can see the value in people beyond their net worth, we'll talk. James and I left them in their dining room, surrounded by crystal and silver and the shattered remains of their assumptions. In the car, James was quiet for a long moment. 387 million? Give or take. And you let them treat you like that. I let them show me who they are. There's a difference. Will you really give them another chance? That depends. Do you think they can change? He considered. Maybe. When Mom realizes her friends will be reading Forbes tomorrow. That's changing for the wrong reasons. It's a start, he said. Maybe shame can evolve into genuine reflection. Maybe. I love you, he said simply. Nebraska barn dancer and all. I love you too. Even though you come from such a difficult family. He laughed. They're going to grovel now. Probably. It's going to be embarrassing. Definitely. Worth it. I thought about it. 3 years of insults versus a lifetime with the man I loved. You're worth it, I decided. They're just baggage I'm willing to carry. My phone buzzed. Eleanor had found my Wikipedia page. Another buzz. She discovered my TED Talk. Another. The company website. Another. The charitable foundation. She's spiraling, James noted. Let her spiral. Maybe she'll learn something on the way down. We drove home to our modest apartment. I'd refused to upgrade until Eleanor stopped calling me a gold digger. Now that she knew the truth, maybe we could finally look at houses. Or maybe not. Maybe I'd wait until she proved she could see me as more than a number on a Forbes list. After all, I'd waited 3 years. What was a little longer?